So this was actually rumoured quite a while ago, and I didn't know about it until quite recently, but Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks are having a crossover. The reason I wanted to talk about it now is that we've just got a new Strange New Worlds Season 2 trailer with a blink and you'll miss it moment, or several blink and you'll miss it moments, of Boimler and Mariner interacting with the Strange New Worlds cast. And while we don't get much, we do get a pretty funny moment where Spock's like, live long and prosper, and Boimler just tries to do the Vulcan salute and just fumbles as he's being beamed away. But if you've watched this channel before, then you'll know I have a dislike of the Discoverse. And now I've never watched Strange New Worlds, and I hear it's actually pretty good. But me with my continuity-driven brain doesn't like the fact it's directly connected to Discovery, whereas you can kind of try and disconnect the other stuff going on, like Picard and Lower Decks, from the Discoverse. Or at least you could until now. But the main point is the fact that, despite all that, I absolutely love this trailer, mainly because of the bits with Boimler and Mariner. I started watching Lower Decks just out of a newfound desire to explore new Trek after watching Picard Season 3, and to my surprise I ended up really liking it. So to see the characters in live action looking really quite good, I mean the uniforms are astounding. It can't help but make me smile a little bit. I mean the attention to detail they've got is really quite something. I mean not only do the voice actors, and yes it is the voice actors from Lower Decks who are reprising their roles in live action, look like their characters, but they've actually dyed Jack Quaid's hair purple. I know there was some concern that they wouldn't do that, and Mariner's got her sleeves rolled up and everything, and I can't help but think if they've gone and got tips from Dave Filoni or something about how to translate animated characters into live action, because this level of quality in their translation is something you normally only really see in Star Wars at the moment. But I think the big question on everybody's lips is, what's the episode actually going to be about? I've seen some reports that say that the episode starts out animated, basically like an episode of Lower Decks, but then goes live action when they go to the Strange New Worlds universe, or like basically enter into that series. And it does raise a lot of questions about continuity. It's not just me in this respect, because despite the fact that Strange New Worlds Season 2 looks like it's going to be taking more of a backstep on the visual redesign, especially like the Klingons look, you know, like you might expect. They're not the disco Klingons anymore. There are still continuity gaffes, and the fact it's connected to Discovery, which is where continuity goes to die, basically. And they could either just skip over it and be like, you know, just completely ignore it or whatever, or because Lower Decks is actually really quite faithful to the continuity, surprisingly, of all things that are that faithful, it's the animated series. They could end up fixing the entire thing in complete nerd's eyes like mine, and yes, I am one of those nerds who nitpicks like, oh, the ship doesn't look quite right, or the uniform's all jacked up, because to me, continuity is the foundation of a believable universe. If you end up changing everything every 5 minutes, then you have nothing to fall back on. You have what amounts to an anthology of visual styles, and you know, my brain's too small to be able to keep up with a dozen different visual styles claiming to all be in the same universe. But my thinking was that Lower Decks, having the Lower Decks characters in, would be an absolutely wonderful opportunity to fix or at least patch those issues. Well, let me put it this way, the tone that Lower Decks has, they could come in and wave a hand and make it so that all the continuity gaps didn't matter anymore. How might one do this, you ask? Well, the first thing that we generally go for when thinking how did Lower Decks characters get into Strange New Worlds would be time travel. However, Lower Decks have, and I've seen a couple of people theorizing about this, they have a history with holodeck movies, and I've seen one person say, because Boimler served on the Titan for a while with Riker, who enjoys watching historical recreations on the holodeck, who's to say that Boimler and Mariner didn't create historical recreation of the early days of Starfleet, and maybe Mariner thought all the old ships and uniforms looked a little bit too boring, so she reprogrammed it to have basically what the Enterprise looks like in Strange New Worlds and what everything looked like in Discovery, and you could, in a believable way, have it so that basically Disco and Strange New Worlds is effectively a holodeck program run by Boimler and Mariner with tweaks to the visual style just because Mariner felt like it. And that, to me, it wouldn't invalidate the story that's been told in those series, because it's a historical representation. It's still still happened, but you could then very easily explain away anything you weren't over keen on, you know. But then because we've got Boimler blubbering because he's in awe of being in the presence of one of his heroes, that theory does seem a little less likely, although we have no idea what kind of context it's all in. Now, this is all probably just me grabbing at straws, but that would seem like a very Lower Deck thing to do, because I very much doubt they're just going to have them come into the episode and just meander around, not doing anything silly or outrageous, because for crying out loud, that's basically their characters. They get into trouble all over the place. I mean, hell, they might even be the reason why things are different in Discovery and Strange New Worlds. And I would laugh my ass off if they come back and they did something, and then it got to the point where Pike is supposed to have his accident, which puts him in the, you know, the box wheelchair thing, and he doesn't get hurt. And then that's the realization that, oh Christ, this is kind of diverged some way. But whatever the case, it's a very out of left field idea, which I kind of love. And honestly, it's kind of a good move, because people like myself who didn't like what they did with Discovery. It was far too dark for me, and I didn't think the writing was very good, plus obviously the offense I took at the continuity issues. And that kind of stuck around with my feelings to Strange New Worlds, despite the fact that it is apparently pretty good. I've still been hesitant to watch it because of what came before. But by connecting Lower Decks, which is, as far as I can tell, pretty beloved by the fandom, you know, the two fandoms that have sprung up in Trek lately, both seem to like Lower Decks, so having a crossover might pull in Trekkies like myself, because I do want to watch this episode, and that will probably, if it's any good, make me interested to watch more episodes, which then might lead me back to watch the whole of Strange New Worlds. Now, I probably won't go back and watch the whole of Discovery again, because I watched it before, and it's not my kind of thing. And I think that's fair enough. People can like what they like, not like what they don't like. But for some fans who may end up getting invested in getting into Strange New Worlds because of this Lower Decks crossover, they might go back and watch Discovery. Who knows? So I think basically what I'm trying to say overall is the fact that New Trek kind of got off to a bad foot because they changed the style so drastically in Discovery. And I've always said if Discovery was made as its own standalone series which didn't have the Star Trek name, I'd probably be much more forgiving towards it. But started off on a bad foot, caused a rift in the fandom, and now to an extent that rift seems to be healing, largely driven by Picard Season 3, but also patched up more by Lower Decks and Prodigy, because both those series are good. And had it not been for Picard Season 3, then me and a lot of fans who didn't like New Trek probably wouldn't have gone back and watched them, and that would have been our loss, because like I say, they are good shows. And it might be the same thing for Strange New Worlds. You know, we watched Picard Season 3 and we loved it, and then we went back and watched Prodigy and Lower Decks, and we liked Lower Decks and Prodigy obviously, but then Lower Decks tied in with Strange New Worlds, so we went back and watched Strange New Worlds. It's almost like back selling us into what's already been made. So yeah, I just wanted to give a few of my thoughts about this crossover situation, and I'm always worried to make a video where I give my opinions on New Trek, because I've had hate before saying I have the wrong opinion, but hopefully we won't get any of that. And guys, I'm saying this is a good thing. I really like what they're doing here. So anyway, let me know what you think of this Strange New Worlds Lower Deck crossover down in the comments. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.